Our general view is that we do not want to shut down the government, but we are not afraid of a government funding showdown, and we will win that showdown because we stand on the side of the American people.
What's the difference between a shutdown and a showdown to you?
Next question.
Saying on my phone, I don't know, some of you know this on the iPhone, they've got that little stock app. I added Tesla to it to give me a little boost during the day. 225 and dropping. So, and if you own one, we're not blaming you. You can take dental floss and pull the Tesla thing off, you know, and take out, just telling you.
Some critical infrastructure like that obviously requires a backup, and I can exclusively reveal this morning to you, your viewers and your listeners, having spoken to an industry expert, it appears that Heathrow had changed its backup systems in order to be, wait for it, net zero compliant, and therefore they had got rid of their diesel generators and had moved towards a biomass generator that was designed not to completely replace the grid, but work alongside the grid. And therefore, basically, their net zero compliant backup system has completely failed in its core function at the first time of asking. I mean, it beggars belief.
We are mobilizing in New York. We have people going to the Republican districts and going after these Republicans who are voting for this and forcing them to either change their vote or face the consequences. This is a long, relentless fight that we fight every day. And I am confident that we will bring Trump's popularity, numbers, and strength down if we keep at it and keep at it and keep at it.
Welcome back to the Unregulated podcast. This is episode number 222 here on Friday, March 21st. I am your co-host, Tom Pyle.
And I'm Mike McKenna, and we are going to have to struggle to get a better title than What's the Difference Between a Showdown and a Shutdown?
Yeah, it was excellent reporting there. We'll do a quick. We predicted it. It happened exactly as we predicted it. Chuck Schumer canceled his book tour this week, and apparently he was having face-to-face meetings with very important Democrats about yet again what to do and how to fight back. And we're going out of order here, but it appears that Democracy in Action is busing Democrat activists into red states to shut them down. So, I mean, he just literally admitted what we've been talking about forever. Right?
These old guys, man, the stuff they say, you gotta just, yes. Golly, man, it's okay to shut up.
Yeah, 100%. In that same interview, I think it was on PBS, of course, he bragged about all these judges that he appointed during the Biden administration and how they're doing their job. So
he must be in trouble.
Yeah,
I don't know. The fact that Congresswoman Pelosi has been pinging him on the regular for the last couple of days.
You mean Speaker Emerita.
I'm not going to take the bait today on that one. I'm feeling too sunshiny, but yes,
I mean, the former. If you're sunshiny, I'm not taking you out of sunshine because
the former speaker, Nancy Pelosi.
She really does. I mean, I do feel a little bit sorry for Hakeem Jeffries because she's hanging around, but I don't. I look forward to the day when he actually assumes the mantle of the leadership of the Democratic Party, because he's just awful. Like I don't know what they see in this guy.
Yeah. You know what he is?
That tick of his is like so bad.
And I've been thinking about
bad
this.
Jesse Jackson thing, right?
No. I mean, yeah. Jesse Jackson kind of ruined everybody because he was really good at this and nobody else is. No, he's actually reminds me of a different guy. Jim Wright.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I know you made that furrowed brow thing, and yeah, on first glance, you're like, okay, that doesn't make any sense, right? Because they're two totally different people, but in their own way, they represent factions. At least Jim Wright represents what used to be a faction of the Democratic Party, right? The Southern Democrats. But when you get them out of their native habitat, they just look awful. They just don't resonate with anybody. They're not great, you know.
Next question. That was so good.
Next question.
Shutdown, showdown. The OK Corral.
Oh boy. Okay.
Tim Walz, I mean, he is the gift that keeps on giving. He's just an odd bird. Do you know that the Minnesota pension fund has close to 2 million shares of Tesla stock? Might have done a little bit of homework.
Yeah, seriously.
Before he...
sometimes he's just a knucklehead, Tom.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And by sometimes I mean pretty much during the waking hours. Those sometimes.
Yeah, Heathrow is closed. Chaos ensues. Net zero is to blame.
Yeah, I feel super bad about all the rich kids who can't go to Europe now. That makes me sad. Nobody's making their connecting flight to Stad this afternoon.
I saw this other. I was going to bring it up, but I will anyway. We sent a thing in the morning clips today about Germany, and they had Boston Consulting Group come and do I did an analysis of their energy Vendi.
Yeah.
They want to spend $1.75 trillion to get to net zero by 2045. And BYD said, "Oh, well, with efficiencies, you could knock 300 billion off of that target list."
You know what? I mean, I love the guys at Boston Consulting Group, but I will go in there and for $500,000, I will tell them how you could knock 1.75 trillion off the number.
Yeah, it's like Hochul's saving congestion pricers $1,200 a year.
Say, I got a different answer for you that's going to save you more.
And the article also pointed out that Germans' electricity prices have gone up 70%.
Yeah, since 2010.
Little experiment.
Yeah, since 2010. Truthfully, I think that's an underestimation. I think it's gone up more than that in the last 15 years. But the thing that struck me about it was gas prices have gone up 5x. I'm thinking to myself, if you're an American politician, you got to look at that and think, holy mackerel. How long would Americans tolerate gas prices at $15?
But if they put their transmission lines, if they didn't bury their lines, they could save $300 billion. So, all right. Any announcements for you today, my good friend and co-host?
I have two announcements. One is after announcing my sister's birthday on the podcast last week in advance of the birthday, I, of course, forgot to actually call her on the day of the birthday.
Well, you figured you'd already knocked it out because, who doesn't listen to the Unregulated podcast?
It was so bad. 2 days later, I was like, oh, Lord, I forgot her birthday. I forgot her birthday. So I promised I would say something again on the podcast. So happy birthday, Faith. Sorry again. And then, I also wanted to just make a real quick announcement. 5 years ago yesterday, I had a transformative event in my career. And I want to thank a few people who helped me make that transformation, make that transition. One of them is my co-host, Tom Pyle. One of them is Shannon. One of them is Tony Kavanaugh. One of them is Joe Blunt, who used to be the CEO of Colonial. One of them is Tom, who lives in North Carolina. I will refrain from using his last name.
Protect the identity of the friend.
I'm worried about what his company might think.
Yeah, exactly.
To be totally honest with you. Anyway, it was a very difficult moment in my life, and I cannot adequately thank each and every one of these folks for how they helped me through it. So that's
I'm sure out of all of those, your co-hosts was just stellar, even though I have no remembrance whatsoever of what I did or said to help you, but you are quite welcome, sir.
It happened relatively late at night, and you may have already been overserved at that point.
What are you trying to say?
Not a
Anyway, thank you. All right, I have one announcement. I spent 2 glorious days in the Tampa St. Pete region earlier this week, taking in some spring training games.
And you didn't invite me? Thanks.
It was went down to Venice and caught a Braves game, which was good but awful at the same time. The traffic. I'm so glad that I didn't end up settling down in that region, man. The traffic is just insane.
Really?
Yeah, and then wrapped it up at Steinbrenner Field, which, by the way, is a tremendous upgrade for the Rays.
Oh yeah.
I mean, they're going to have so much fun there. They're going to wish that they, don't have to.
Yeah, it's just a much better stadium. The question I got is, how many rainouts are they going to have?
Well, I haven't. They adjusted their schedule so that most of their games in the summer are away. So they're attempting to minimize that to some extent. But as you know, it rains at least once a day, starting in about a week. So
yeah, no, I agree with the upgrade idea. I mean, because that thing they playing in St. Petersburg, it's like playing in somebody's living room. It's just weird.
Yeah, we drove past it. It was freaky with the dome gone, even uglier than it normally is. So
I'll bet. Did you wind up going to Burns?
No, I didn't. I didn't have the right clothes.
I understand.
Yeah,
I understand.
So we'll do it next time.
I'm not even sure that's a sentence you can say in Florida, but okay.
It's true.
Yeah.
They have a dress code. So
do they?
Yeah. Business casual minimum. So anyhow, it was fun. It was fun to catch a little baseball. Now I'm getting my juices flowing here. Did you know that Nita Lowe passed away?
Yes, I did.
Nita Lowe, of course. What was her district? Was she the Bronx?
Yeah, she's the Bronx and Westchester.
AOC's this seat?
No. She's the one north of AOC's. She would have been AOC's congresswoman growing up. In fact, I suspect she was, right? Forget would have been. I think she was.
I thought she grew up in Lawler's district.
Maybe.
She's from West.
She's from Westchester.
Westchester, right? So
yeah.
That scrappy progressive AOC.
Nothing says progressivism like Westchester.
And then, of course, Raul Grijalva.
Yes. Yeah. I'm sorry to hear about that.
3 members of Congress in the last since Trump's speech.
I'm sorry. Who's the third? Oh, the Sylvester Turner, right? Turner?
Yeah, and then one other individual. The guy who was he the one who replaced what's her name from Houston area?
Yes.
Sheila Jackson Lee.
Yes, Sheila Jackson Lee. Yes, thank you. I hadn't thought about the 3. I hadn't put that all together. Yeah, I'm Nita Lowe was a good member of Congress. I disagreed with her on a bunch of things, but at least she was straightforward, and she was actually pretty good at getting bipartisan bills done, which is a fading skill, right? I mean, it's like you're watching somebody blow glass. You're like, okay, not too many guys can do this anymore.
You can't say the same for Mr. Grijalva.
I always felt bad for him. Let me just, I know it's more difficult for you to feel bad for him because you had to deal with him more often, but it is pretty rare that you run across somebody who is that unhappy. I mean, that for whatever reason, he was just not happy to be living, and it came out in every different way.
Yeah, and I went back and forth on bringing this up, but the probably shining moment in Interior Secretary Zinke's short-lived tenure at the department was the tweet in response to some offense, something where he said, "My thoughts on Rep. Grijalva's opinion piece. # tune in for more." We'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, it's just you just
Twitter is toxic, man. It's just toxic.
Yeah, people need to think more before they hit send on stuff. That's all I'm going to say.
All right, in 1556.
1556. Oh boy, I know this date. Charles V. No, the 1565. 1556. Give me a hint.
Archbishop Thomas Cranmer was executed by Mary the First.
Oh yeah.
Bloody Mary. Mary had a special grudge against Cranmer as he orchestrated the divorce between Henry VIII and her mother, Catherine of Aragon. So,
yeah, I knew that guy.
I thought you would know that one.
I should have.
You're good about these. You're good about the 1860 area and the 1935 to 47 era. You're pretty good at all three of those. So
I'll have to work on everything.
1871 on this day.
On this day in 1871,
a journalist, Henry Stanley, began his expedition
to find Livingston in Africa. Yeah.
To find one
Dr. Livingstone.
Dr. Livingstone, the missing British explorer who was seeking the
headwaters of the
Nile River. Sure. And upon his arrival in a small village, of course, exclaimed the phrase, extending his hand, "Dr. Livingstone, I presume." To which the stranger responded, "Yes, and I feel thankful that I'm here to welcome you, sir." And the response, of course, was, "I thank God, doctor, I have been permitted to see you."
Yeah, you gotta you know, I have mixed feelings about the English and my own Anglo-Saxon heritage, but you got to give him credit for stuff like this, right? The low keyness of the whole operation is just you know. I mean, you walk in, you try to imagine it. He walks into a village.
You got all dressed up,
full of Africans, and there's one white dude. He's like, okay, this is my guy.
Yeah. In 1965, this journey also began in 1965.
1965, something in the Apollo mission. The Apollo mission began.
No, on this day in history, Martin Luther King began his
march to Selma.
From Selma to Montgomery, Alabama, flanked by federal troops. Over 3,200 civil rights demonstrators marched to Montgomery from Selma. At one point, they were asked to reduce their numbers to 300, but then were rejoined shortly after the journey to Montgomery. So, and then lastly, speaking of Twitter, on this day in 2006.
Speaking of Twitter started in this day in 2006.
Twitter co-founder Jack Dorsey sent the first public tweet, which read, quote, "Just setting up my Twitter." And the world has been...
He's going to say. It's not
forever altered.
Yeah, not forever, but just at least for the duration of our lives here.
All right, big day yesterday. Let me set it up with a clip.
Well, I think that's been the president's, hue and cry. He said we are spending more money per pupil than any country in the world, and we're seeing less results. That's a clear indicator that we are not doing the best thing we can do for our students. I do think returning to basics is the best way to do it. We need to teach math and English and literacy and writing. We don't need to teach ideology. We have to let teachers teach. I have such respect for our teachers. I think it is the most noble profession in the world, and I have seen what can happen when teachers are allowed to teach and to be innovative and be creative in their classrooms. Brett, for every dollar that goes into the school system, the federal funding, it's been reported to me that almost 47 cents of that dollar is spent in regulatory compliance. Teachers, they don't want to stay. They're leaving the profession because they are bogged down by regulation. Let's lift that burden and let them do what they do best, which is teach.
Yeah, I've kind of mixed feelings about this. I would have rather, I don't know if I would have rather. I'm not sure which is the right answer. An alternative approach would have been to use the power of the federal grants to require school choice, right? We're making some progress on that, but we still only have about 8 or 10 states who are doing it. You know, I'm not certain which is the better organic answer. You know, I
I mean,
totally,
this has clearly been since Reagan, this has been a mission of the Republican Party.
yeah,
But
I
let's
get
be
it.
clear, it is not eliminated. It is merely they're going to still manage all of the loans and everything else. Eventually, he wants to move that over to Treasury and just kind of like, start to unwind the thing. But it will still need an act of Congress, and there is no way in hell that 7 Democrats are going to support this in the Senate.
It seems unlikely, right? You know what? We were talking about moving this thing to Treasury in the first term. I mean, literally my first day in the big house, I went to a policy coordinating committee meeting on this very topic. And like everybody wanted to set up a separate agency to like manage the loans. I'm like, what planet are you guys from? I'm like, I don't know about you, but I didn't sign on to like create new federal agencies, guys. It, it, it would be much better to sell off the federal loan portfolio. I think
Yeah, we
that's what
should.
that's
Well,
what they should do.
Obama snatched it up in his
Yeah,
first term.
they should sell. I realize you sell it at a discount, but you know what? When you count all the bureaucracy in there, I gotta believe like letting somebody else do it was going to wind up being a better answer.
Yeah, well, I think the 3 prizes that Barack Obama attempted to take over were healthcare, energy, and education.
Yeah, well, I
And he
mean, the
got
thing,
2 out of 3, but some crafty individuals like you and me and a few others
yeah, the thing about
stopped the cap
education,
and trade deal. So
what worries me about education is that we never start with our lead foot on it. We always start on our left foot. I'm just like, dude, um, all we need to do is keep pointing out we love teachers. We don't like administrators. You know, and we now have more
I think
administrators than we
McMahon
have
hit the
teachers.
right tone there, don't
I
you?
think she did fine. Yeah, I think she did fine. It's sort of just generically overall. We never sort of start that way. Where I was like, well, you know, he people the eighth graders, 2/3 of eighth graders aren't reading on a eighth grade level. Okay, great, but it would be better if you start up by saying we're drowning in administrative costs, and here's what that means in reality, right? Think about Bill Clinton, right? Bill Clinton always had, here's my organizing principle or theory. Here's an outgrowth, in the real world, in the policy world, right? And then at the end of it, here's what it means to you, right? And on that, look, here's my organizing principle. We should be spending more on teachers than on administrators. We're not, and therefore all our kids are dropping, in terms of capacity and production. And what that means for you is your kid's going to be less well educated than they should be. We, there's not a lot of clarity. I guess that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I hear you. So a fresh take on this, and I was actually surprised in my research, is from The Hill. Hawaii Governor Josh Green on Trump wanting states to run education. Quote, I'll take it. Hawaii Governor Josh Green said Wednesday if President Trump's plan to put education policy in the hands of the states happened, he would take it and make good use of the money that flows to the governor's office. I spent time with the president a couple weeks ago with all the other governors. If that money flows to we governors, we'll make good use of it, Green told News Nation's The Hill anchor Blake Berman. Just for perspective for those watching, 11% right now of my entire budget on education is from the federal government. I need those dollars for like special education, for kids with autism, for so many needs, for meals in schools. So if the dollars flow to us and we get rid of some bureaucracy, I think governors will welcome the resource.
Yeah, I agree, right? And I mean that's the thing about it. This should be a nonpartisan thing. I mean this is about, hey, we're going to spend X on the kids. Let's make sure that like we get as much of that X to the kids. And I who disagrees with that, right? Well,
let's see who disagrees with that. Hold on. Let's get our good friend here in the mix.
COVID was a terrible time for us, and as you know, because I was on your show a lot and other shows, I wanted schools to be reopened. as early as April of 2020. The issue was the fear and the issue was the safety issues. But COVID has really hurt in so many ways. But this has been a Republican talking point for a long time.
Randy Weingarten, of course, ladies and gentlemen, and her attempt to rewrite history.
I was going to say, I have no idea, no earthly idea how that lady can be on anything and be taken seriously. That's crazy. That's just insane.
Yeah. This is, of course, her umpteenth interview where she vehemently swears she fought to reopen schools during COVID. So I think Governor DeSantis had a different opinion about that.
There are a lot of people that have done a lot of damage in this country over the last few years since COVID. But I would say among the most damaging has been Weingarten as the head of the National Teacher Union, because she really led the effort to force schools to close. When we said in the summer of 2020, I think it was like June of 2020, COVID hysteria was still at fever pitch. We said every school district will be open for in-person instruction. If you care about kids and you care about education, you would have greeted that positively. I know a lot of the parents greeted it positively, even at the time when it was very controversial. She did not. The teacher union did not. They responded by suing us to try to lock kids out of school. They wanted a court to rule that we could not allow kids to be in school in person. And had we gone down that direction, there would have been devastating impacts to our youth. But there were many jurisdictions, because of that activism and because of the power that those unions have over school systems in places like Chicago, Los Angeles, San Francisco, where these kids had no chance. And the sad part about it is the people that would oftentimes be out public advocating for school closures, a lot of times they got their kids private tutoring. They got their kid in a private in-person school. It was really the lower income, the working class families that bore the brunt of her school closures. And I think it's going to have a generational impact, because you can't just keep a kid out for a year and deprive them of being able to do activities, all these things, and think that that's not going to have an impact. You know, it's hard enough growing up right now with all the influences out there. You just completely deprive them. So I just think it was totally deplorable.
Yeah, who are we going to believe, ladies and gentlemen?
I was going to say, true story.
Believe
that guy's
your
totally
eyes.
accurate. Yeah, man.
Yeah, she's
It's ridiculous.
I don't get it. I really don't.
I don't either. I hope this thing is right. I hope this is the right direction. I think it is, but like I said,
think the combination is the right direction. More states need to push choice, and we need to push this down. Let the governors. I mean, at least you remove that layer.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. Right, the right answer is to do it all and sort of see what gets sticky, right? But what works the best. You got to figure the right answer is always put good teachers in the classrooms and let them do their thing.
Yeah,
it just seems like maybe I'm oversimplifying it, but it's the genius of Catholic schools, right? Just put good teachers in and let them do their thing. Don't overmanage anybody.
Yeah, well, just for my history, we put our kids in Catholic schools. I would have probably preferred to do that from the beginning, but we at least put them in during COVID because they fought Montgomery County day in and day out to keep the kids in the classroom.
Yeah, man. There's no substitute. And these are golden years, right? The years when they're in school from 6 to 18. It's when your uptake is the best. It's when you learn the fastest. I mean, you can't waste any of that time.
All right, let's move on. We got a little Senate update. The picture keeps getting better and better for Republicans. The Hick is thinking about running for governor of Colorado.
I think he should. He liked that job better.
Yeah, he's been around a really long time now.
I mean, you forget, I said this before. He started this thing as a bar owner who was annoyed about zoning. So he got on the city council and then mayor and then, governor and then senator and then, governor. He the guy's a born kind of businessman. He should be a governor. He's wasting his time in the Senate.
Yeah. I got to look into this though. I guess, what does he have, potentially one more term, or how does that work?
Oh, I have no idea. I have no idea.
So,
I
okay.
probably should take.
And in other news, Lisa Murkowski opened the door.
When people say, why aren't you a better Republican? And if you're not, get out of the party. You know what? Until Alaskans tell me, Lisa, it's just not working anymore, I am going to give you every last breath that I have, and I'm going to try to solve every little problem, and I'm not going to compromise my own integrity by hiding from my words when I feel they need to be spoken. I'm going to take the criticism that comes, and it may be that Elon Musk has decided he's going to take the next $1 billion that he makes off of Starlink and put it directly against Lisa Murkowski. And you know what? That may happen. But I'm not giving up 1 minute, one opportunity to try to stand up for Alaskans. But I got to figure out how to do that, and I need Alaskans' help.
You'd think she would have figured out how to do that by now.
Do you ever?
I don't know, but I'm telling you, she's opening the door.
Do you ever wonder, do senators go to some kind of school where they learn how to talk forever? If what you're trying to say is, look, man, I'm just going to cut loose and say what I think, and that, damn the torpedoes. There you go. I managed to say that in like 2 sentences. She's not running again. I'm more than a betcha right now. She's not going to run again.
Well, that's an upgrade for the Republicans for sure.
Depends on who takes
a Republican.
Depends on who takes the seat.
Fair enough.
I was going to say
maybe the Gov will.
I hate to remind people of this, but she ran and won as an independent, as a write-in last time. She only caucuses with the Republicans.
I'm telling you that if the ranked choice voting crew or reorganizes for the next election, I might move to Alaska for a while and help them out. So
yeah, we'll see how it goes. I mean, I my preference, I don't know who my preference would be for a senator from that state.
I know who my preference would not be for a senator from that state. I'll leave it at that in case.
I was going to say
Senate confirmation.
We better not say anything else.
This is from AP News. AP News reports Carney plans to trigger an early election in Canada as he shows off his skating skills with an NHL team. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney will trigger an early election this weekend for an expected vote on April 28th, a government official said Thursday, against the backdrop of a trade war and sovereignty threats from U.S. President Donald J. Trump. In this time of crisis, the government needs a strong and clear mandate, Carney said in Edmonton, Alberta. This guy was a banker.
This guy's he's not just a banker. This guy invented the bankers for net zero, or whatever they call themselves.
Yeah.
The net zero asset management, something or other, and asset managers, whatever. Yeah, he's a Bank of England, Bank of Canada. He's a piece of work. I mean, you want to talk about a globalist? This dude is like John Kerry level globalist. And you know me, I'm not one of these guys who throws around that word a lot, but come on, man.
Yeah, well, President Trump did not help the Conservative Party in Canada yet again in an interview with Laura Ingraham.
Much more. We have much more. I don't think so.
Just so you understand, we subsidize Canada, and I like Canada. I love Canada. I love Wayne
now
Gretzky.
the Liberal guys,
I love his wife.
The Liberal Party is
everything.
going to win now in the next election,
I don't
most
care.
likely. And they were down and out.
I don't
Isn't that
care.
going to make them more hostile to us and possibly
No, I'd rather
open the
deal
door
with a liberal than a
for
conservative.
China closer to Canada, and that would really put us in a bind.
The conservative that's running is stupidly no friend of mine. I don't know him, but he said negative things. So when he says negative things, I couldn't care less. I think it's easier to deal, actually, with a liberal. And maybe they're going to win, but I don't really care. It doesn't matter to me at all.
So your end game is what with them?
My end game is I don't want to have a big deficit. I don't want to see the United States of America, and you say 60 and I say 200, but it doesn't matter. I don't want us to pay 60 or 200 billion dollars to a country that if they were a state, think of this, he would be our biggest, most beautiful, it would be great.
Just won't give up this 50.
Seriously, man, let it go. Let it go. Yeah, actually, I'm pretty sure that was designed to help the guy Pierre Polivier, however you pronounce that last name. I'm pretty sure that was designed to help him, not hurt him.
Yeah, well, if he is telling the truth and would rather deal with the liberal, this is what Mr. Carney said in a response to a question about engaging with Trump.
You will have a call with President Trump in the coming days. What are your expectations for the president in that call?
I think, let me say a few things. The first is that the President of the United States, the Prime Minister of Canada, but certainly the President of the United States has many responsibilities, and there are many issues. I can think of many geostrategic issues that the President is helping to lead on, and you can think of events most recently in with respect to the Houthis and all the way through to trade and other aspects. So there's a wide range of issues to be discussed when we do connect. With respect to trade, I look forward to, at the appropriate time, having a discussion as to sovereign nations that is comprehensive, not targeted at one issue.
God,
are you sure that guy's not a United States Senator? Mackerel.
Well, yeah, many issues. There weren't that many issues.
I was going to say he didn't really sound like he was all that anxious to have that either. He didn't sound like he was super anxious to like go up there and punch somebody in the nose, right?
Yeah,
like a guy who's angry would be like, dude, I'm going to call that guy and we're going to have it out, and that's it.
I hope you are correct about your assertion that President Trump is indeed trying to help Pierre, because
a
couple of things, reasons. One, he'd be much more interesting. Two, maybe this will end the whole 51st state thing.
I doubt it.
And I'll be able to move
I
on.
doubt it. I mean, look, one thing about President Trump is, right?
One thing.
Just one thing. When he repeats things, that's because he's serious.
Coming from him too.
He's serious, right? Yeah, exactly. So this Greenland thing, this Canada thing, he definitely wants to take some territory. I mean, I'm like, why don't we? If we're gonna pick a 51st state, let's pick the Japanese or somebody that was actually well organized and like that we like and is like us. And
we'll just take some of the provinces. We don't need the whole state.
I would definitely, what provinces I'd take.
I'll take Alberta.
I would take Alberta.
Take Saskatchewan.
Yeah, and I'd take British Columbia, but I would leave Vancouver.
Yes,
I'd let that be like Hong Kong, just like, okay, you do your thing.
Ontario, forget it. Just forget it.
I might take Ontario, but only if we didn't let them vote in federal elections. I can't remember which comedian said this, but in describing Toronto, he's like, it's like New York, but without any things to do or any stuff to see. This is like, right.
Or any good food.
Right. You know what? I would take Quebec.
Montreal.
I wouldn't hurt my feelings to have a couple more Catholics in the union.
Yeah, man. Anyway, I do think that the truncation of the election is an effort to try to salvage the Liberal Party. The sooner the better, right? Given
I
the
agree. I
swing
think
in their in the
I,
polling. So
I think the conservatives are kind of suffering now. I think he's going to try to, he's pulling the trigger to avoid any kind of retrenchment of attitudes.
one more month, Showdown in Canada. So anyway, so moving on to energy, unless you have any more politics that you want to bring up.
The Battle of the Lumberjacks. Go ahead.
All right, let me set this up with a clip.
Net zero by 2050, of course, is just nonsense. It's an activist thing, and it's a top-down big government justification to do mostly anti-human things. But what I will say to the, maybe not to the climate activists, but to the thoughtful people about climate change, we will follow the math and the science and be honest about the trade-offs here. Everything in life has trade-offs. If you can reduce greenhouse gas emissions without raising prices or reducing human freedom, that's a big win. And that's what the rise of U.S. shale gas has done by growing LNG export. We share that economic and reduced greenhouse gas benefit with the world. But we're going to treat things like they're real serious topics and not a quasi-cult religion where we'll justify anything in the name of climate change, even when it's a reversing of benefits from climate change, as the Biden administration did with the LNG pause. Return of common sense, I should say.
These guys are good.
Is our new secretary?
Yes, sir. Secretary Wright, between him and Lee Zeldin, they just are not.
Like I said,
they're not pulling back anything on
like
this.
I said, we got lucky.
Thing.
We got lucky in this vertical, man. We got the best. Absolutely. We got the best people.
So that, of course, is on the heels of the approval of yet another LNG terminal, which is going to happen. We're gonna do them all. We're gonna approve them all. We're gonna permit them all. Yeah. And did you see the article from our friends Jen and Ari at Bloomberg?
No. About what?
I'll read it to you. Bloomberg's Biden LNG study shelved.
Oh yeah.
After pollution impacts deemed minor, when the Biden administration stopped approving licenses to export U.S. LNG in January last year. Officials said they first needed to determine how those shipments would affect the environment and the economy. But the federal government already had some of those answers. Just 4 months earlier, the DOE had completed a study of the issue, concluding that ramped up LNG exports would only modestly increase domestic residential gas prices and wouldn't appreciably change global greenhouse gas emissions. That assessment, which has not been previously publicly released, was reviewed by Bloomberg News. A copy of the study dated September 5th, 2023 and marked as final review draft was transmitted to House Republicans examining the LNG export pause. Old Secretary Jenny bottled up the report.
I'm shocked. I'm amazed.
Transparency.
Come on, man. She's from Canada. What do you expect? Maybe we should say that. Look, here's why you don't want to be the 51st state. Last Canadian we had in here was a disaster.
Did you see my
the dating game?
Did you see my comment in the clip about this? Did Secretary Jenny think that this was never gonna be unearthed?
I had not seen that dating game thing. That's awesome. It's the reason why I was late today, because I was watching. I was like, "There's no way this is real." I watched it twice.
It's real. So these guys were unabashed.
A different organization, a different kind of arrangement. If we were different kinds of people, we would be calling for grand jury investigations at this minute. Because does that feel like an inappropriate use of government resources? Does that feel like a conspiracy to I don't want to say to lie, but a conspiracy to suppress the truth? And is that are you entitled to use your federal government pay to do that on government time? I mean, I know we're kidding around about it, but at a certain point, you're like, dude, at what point does it cross into criminality?
Yeah.
It's at a bare minimum, it's a violation of your oath of office.
Yeah,
Bare
well,
minimum.
I mean, I said it before. The LNG guys were riding high, right? They were like, "Oh, we're the good guys here. We're giving all this gas to Europe, saving them." They were caught flat-footed as well. I don't think they ever imagined that the Biden guys would have done what they did. But it
No,
also
no.
shows you exactly what the mental acuity issue played into most of the decisions that were made,
Yeah. I don't think
especially in
I
the
don't
last
think.
year or two.
Yeah, I don't
Do you
think the
remember that
president
clip
knew.
from Johnson where
Yes.
Speaker Johnson said Biden didn't even know what he was talking about?
Yeah, he thought he had signed. He thought he had signed a temporary pause, or he thought he'd signed off on it, or whatever. Yeah, and he hadn't. Um, I remember this when they dropped this pause on us. Everyone's like, "Well, it's just a couple of months, or it's a couple of weeks, or it's this, or it's that, it's the other thing."
No.
Yeah, after it got past 60 days, I'm like, okay, this thing is going to be forever.
I think the venture guys were the ones who got their approval this round. So
Yeah, the venture global. Yeah, so they can announce commercialization and get on with the righteous provision of liquefied natural gas. And man, was that not the most carefully phrased thing
yes,
I could
it
come up
was.
with?
In case Shaylin's listening. All right. Well, in the world of renewables, wind and solar in particular, there are some new messaging being tested. This is from the Solar Industry Association head. I will play this clip for you.
AI.
Data centers.
AI.
Data center.
Data centers.
Data centers.
To AI. It takes massive amounts of electricity to generate intelligence.
The demand is here right now. We have to have the generation available to meet that demand.
A lot of this power is needed now.
How are we going to make sure we have enough energy to fuel this AI dominance? Because speed to build is the #1 priority. And so if you are interested in building quickly, if you want to get your data center, if you want to get your AI, if you want to get your manufacturing center built, then solar and storage are going to be the technology of choice. As we look at history and as we look at the future, solar and storage is where new build is happening.
Of course, they're the label that they closed with was a picture of a circle with the sun and a solar panel and the words American energy dominance.
Yeah. It's smart, right? It's smart, just like it's smart.
No climate change, no net zero, no we're saving the planet. We are your electricity of choice.
I get it. It's smart. It's smart that they, had Damber yet writing, Fox about, Fox News about how great all this stuff is. And there's some truth to it, right? If you want to put a data center out in the middle of nowhere, your wind and solar are going to be good answers. And battery storage is always a good answer unless you care about the fact that it's made with child labor and it's run through the communist Chinese. Everything's Jake. Here's the problem, right? The data center guys don't care about any of that stuff. The guys who are actually building these things, they don't care about any of that stuff. Eventually, we're going to wind up having data centers built along pipelines. I can feel this one coming 100 miles, natural gas pipelines. You can feel this coming 100 miles away. They want to be powered by natural gas. They're going to have solar up front. They're probably going to have some battery storage on premises. So, they can cross the T and dot the I on some of their net zero promises that, of course, they have no intention of achieving. But most of the power plants and most of the data centers are going to wind up being along gas pipelines or close enough that it's not going to implicate too much of the transmission system. It's the right answer. I mean, I give these guys full credit for creativity. I give them like A+, solid approach, but probably like a C for the actual content of the assignment.
Yeah, there's no way this transmission is going to get built.
It's very unlikely. It's very unlikely. And are there going to be solar panels? Yeah.
And even if they're built, even if the Republicans give on the subsidization and socialization of this transmission that they need, it ain't going to be built in time for any of this solar to be able
Well,
to.
I mean, I'll give you some. I'll give you some different, right? Even if the Republicans roll over on the credit and phase it out or do whatever, right? Almost certainly going to be 100% domestic content requirement immediately, right? So that's gonna have the practical effect of blowing up storage and really damaging solar on this thing. So, you know, is it going to be? Are we going to have solar and storage as part of the answer? Probably.
Sure.
Sure.
I'm
Is
not
it
against that either.
is it going to be the main stem of the is it going to be the main stem of the answer? Under no circumstances.
No way.
Is it going to alter is this thing going to alter the trajectory of the tax credit in Congress? Don't be ridiculous. Don't be ridiculous. The only thing that's going to alter the trajectory of the tax credit is what kind of score do people need to actually get the stuff they want, like reducing corporate rates.
Oh, I had a different thought about that. My answer was going to be whether or not Chuck Grassley is gonna
I was going to say, what does Chuck Grassley think about it?
Speaking of AI, there was one cross current, a salmon swimming upstream recently. I don't know if you caught this. It's a little bit older, but I picked it up earlier in the week.
So what's going on with Microsoft's data center spending?
Yeah, well, just to step back a bit, Microsoft has been one of the big technology companies that is investing the most in AI and AI data centers in particular. They've talked about spending $80 billion this year on data center capacity. So this note from TD Cowen really raised a lot of questions. They said that there's evidence, they did some channel checks, they said that there's evidence that Microsoft has been canceling leases at data centers, totaling a couple hundred megawatts of data. They also said that they're stopping something called SOQs, the Statement of Qualifications, which is sort of the step before leases. In other words, they're pulling back pretty dramatically from some of their data center commitments in the U.S., and they're reallocating some of the spending that they were planning on doing internationally into the U.S. And overall, the analysts asked the question of whether Microsoft is getting concerned about whether AI is going to live up to the hype, whether in fact companies like Microsoft are pulling back a bit because they have not seen the pickup in demand for data centers. Now, to be clear, Microsoft has not confirmed this. They haven't talked about these details. We got in touch with them, and they said they still are planning on spending that $80 billion through the end of their fiscal year, which is coming up in June. They didn't talk about what they're doing after that, but they said they're definitely going to spend that amount now. So it does raise questions about where exactly Microsoft is spending this money, what it means, and what the long-term demand for AI is going to be.
TD Cowen, of course, is one of the analysts, one of the TD analyst firms.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, we're going to need a lot of power.
Well, I think we're going to need a lot of power, not just for AI, but if we do bring manufacturing back,
we're going to need a lot of power, and we're going to need
power for that. If we do pump our steel and aluminum industry a little bit, we're going to need power for that.
We're going to need
power, but
we're going to need a lot of power for AI.
This riding high.
We're gonna need a lot of power for
AI wave.
Don't let any guys who are on the short sell side of this thing confuse the issue.
Well, Microsoft did finally respond a couple of weeks later, and they said, in a rebuttal to a report by TD Cowen, an American investment bank, that claimed that the global technology giant has canceled data center leases, Microsoft clarified that its investment plans remained on track, even if it may, quote unquote, strategically pace or adjust its infrastructure in some areas.
Yeah, the other thing is in the last what we've seen in the last 18 months is that everybody goes out and gets the land, and then they figure out what they actually want, right? They have a bunch.
It's like federal offshore leases.
It's kind of like that. I like to think of it. It's kind of like the oil guys, right? You send a landman out first, and like you buy anything that looks promising, and then you actually start stacking them up along some kind of grid of, okay, what's really promising here?
Yeah. Microsoft continued, our plans to spend over $80 billion on infrastructure this fiscal year remains on track as we continue to grow at a record pace to meet customer demand. And then finally, last year alone, we added more capacity than any other prior year in history. While we may strategically pace or adjust our infrastructure in some areas, we will continue to grow strongly in all regions. So they're pushing back a little bit on it.
Yeah, I'm telling you, AI is legit. The demand on it's legit. In 6 months, 8 months, 10 months, we're not even going to be doing this podcast. You and me are just going to mail it in on AI. We're just going to be like, look, come up with a podcast with the two of us.
Yeah,
They
I
follow.
started to think about this a little bit between the energy verticals and all of this stuff, and the solar guys talking the way they're talking. We're winning, man.
Of course.
We are winning.
Don't be ridiculous. If only somebody had written that in a Washington Times column 2 weeks ago.
It's good. We're in a good. This is a good place. It's strange.
I know. That's why we're not used.
Right?
That's why we're
It's like,
looking
wait,
around corners. We're looking around corners for the bad news because you're like, okay, this got to go bad. You're like, not really. Could just keep going like this for a while. Maybe we should do an AI version. Just I don't even know how that would work.
The AI podcast.
No, keep calling it the Unregulated, but it'd just be you and me, and we'll just the AI generated you and me will say increasingly outrageous things, and
we'll just talk completely about AI and sports, and then lose our audience.
We don't like
it. This is from a CEO of NVIDIA, just to kind of wrap up this section.
One big idea is that every single data center in the future will be power limited. Your revenues are power limited. You can figure out what your revenues are going to be based on the power you have to work with. This is no different than, like many other industries. And so we are now a power limited industry. Our revenues will associate with that. Well, based on that, you want to make sure you have the most energy efficient compute architecture you can possibly get.
Yeah. That guy is a national treasure. Jensen Wang, or however you pronounce his name, he's a national treasure, and he's right on spot here, man. He's looking at a world like the only thing that's going to keep us is our inability to build enough power plants.
Yeah, this is going to be fun.
It's going to be great. This is going to be the greatest 10 years of our lives. It's going to be the greatest 10 years of our lives.
We're going to be like running around town, like big smiles on our faces. And anyway, all right. Well, not so happy. Not so many smiles over at Greenpeace USA. This is from the Washington Post. Greenpeace ordered to pay Dakota Access Pipeline operator $660 million in a case that could destroy the group. Greenpeace must pay the oil company that operates the Dakota Access Pipeline $666 million in damages for defaming it. A North Dakota jury decided Wednesday, a massive financial blow to the group that environmentalists say could chill future advocacy. So those Mandan jurists came through just like you predicted.
Yeah.
But they actually doubled the
Yeah.
amount that ET was seeking originally, and they were looking for like 300 million. So they
got 660.
They doubled it, double plus. So.
If you remember when I first heard of this, I'm like, what now? How could you not seek a change of venue? What the? And the funny thing is, in one of the write-ups I read on this, it was like, the problem was that all the jurors and all the witnesses all either like were in the fossil fuel business, they meant the oil business, but they were a little confused, or had family members in the oil business. I'm like, of course they did, you dummies. It would be like trying to impanel a jury in North Dakota where nobody had any farming attachments. Are you guys crazy?
Greenpeace, whose spokesman confirmed the verdict, said it had played a little role in the demonstrations.
Well, great. Then there's no problem. They'll win on appeal.
Yeah, which they intend to do, of course. So this is round one, Energy Transfer 1, Greenpeace 0. Man, this was pretty big.
Yeah. I also, I don't know to what extent the thing was about speech and protest, and to what extent it was about trespassing and breaking stuff.
Criminal vandalism is not speech.
Right, exactly.
That's the end of the day. Greenpeace has spent its entire career vandalizing things.
Right. I mean, and you know me, I'm a huge believer in free speech. I defend all kinds of people's speech, no matter how nonsensical. But this thing strikes me as like saying it's about speech is a pretty extensive reach. I mean, and it's not just trespassing and vandalism. It's just
Destruction of property.
Right. That exactly. If you remember that protest, it was intentionally destructive of the property.
That's right. That's right. I'm kudos to Energy Transfer for taking this on. I think it's great. So, I promised less EV stuff, but I couldn't resist this piece from the Washington Post. Thank you, Captain Obvious. The electric vehicle revolution may be on shakier ground than you think, was the headline. Republican plans to scrap nearly all federal support for electric vehicles could kneecap the nascent industry. Auto industry experts say just when more Americans are considering buying an EV and car companies are planning big investments, where has this guy been living?
I'm glad. Look, I'm glad. I'm glad more Americans are thinking about it. That's super. What that has to do with me giving them money to buy it, I don't know.
But they're not. Not only are they not thinking about it, they're burning Teslas.
If they are, that's great. And if they're not, that's great. I don't care. I just don't understand why I got to give them money.
Here's another quote. Everything that's happening politically couldn't have happened at a worse time from the point of view of EV adoption.
Yeah, well, it could have. It can't happen at a better time for me. So,
there you go.
There you go. I'm giving you the balanced view of this thing. You guys want to buy it? Super. Peace out. Good luck. You want to burn it years later? Who cares?
If you pull the rug out from under the industry, things are going to collapse. And a lot of those investments are just simply going to be canceled.
Wow, that's a hell of an admission right there. Who said that?
Said Jesse Jenkins.
Oh, that guy from Princeton.
Professor of engineering at Princeton University.
Do me a favor. Read the quote one more time.
If you pull the rug out from under the industry.
Stop right there. If the rug that's under the industry is a bunch of federal supports, then guess what?
And it collapses.
Tough.
Yeah.
Hard rule of America is this, kids. If your business model depends on the federal government, you don't have a business model.
The legacy of the climate industrial complex is going to be that they achieved no significant major regulatory constraint other than perhaps the MATS rule. And they spent ungodly amounts of federal taxpayer money, stuff that you and I send to Washington to prop up their agenda.
As long as the defense guys are hanging around, I hesitate to say this, but it's been one of the largest grifts ever.
100%.
I mean, I'm glad that Elon Musk made a bunch of money, but come on, man. Some of it's mine. I want it back.
Yes, sir. Speaking of grift, thank you for the transition. This is from KCRA in California. PG&E asks to raise rates for California customers so it can pay investors more. The new request comes after the California Public Utilities Commission has approved 6 rate increases for PG&E in 2024. PG&E said Thursday has asked California regulators to raise rates, citing a need to quote unquote adequately compensate investors amid risks in the business environment. The utility said in a cost of capital filing that the current risks include inflation and supply chain disruptions that could impact prices and interest rates, federal government actions that could affect costs, and extreme weather events having to be liable for the damages caused by its equipment. PG&E proposals call for increasing residential customer bills by about $5.50 per month, starting as soon as January 1, 2026.
Yeah. I mean, that system is completely and utterly busted out there. I mean, and it all started with solar panels. It all started with solar panels.
What was the tariff? What was that thing called?
Net metering.
Net metering, yeah.
Now, they gave up net metering 4 or 5 years ago, but it was too late. All the damage had been done. So you have a whole bunch of people who are sort of disconnected from the system, which is why they impose the fee on rich guys. This is the
Meanwhile,
only way they can make up any money.
Here's the kicker. PG&E also reported a record 22.47 billion in profits in 2024.
Yeah, you think they should use some of that for some of their fire management system, their forestry management? I mean, they're whatever. I'm sure not supposed to say this, but they're not that good a utility. They're really not, and they live in a lousy state, and it's just a bad cocktail.
Yeah. All right, you brought this one to my attention. This is from the New York Times. Climate group funded by Bill Gates slashes staff in major retreat. Breakthrough Energy, an umbrella group for energy and environmental efforts funded by Mr. Gates, is resetting for the Trump era. Dozens of staff members were cut, including Breakthrough Energy's unit in Europe, its team in the United States working on public policy issues, and most of its employees working on partnerships with other climate organizations, according to 3 people familiar with the matter, who were not authorized to speak publicly. However, quote, Bill Gates remains as committed as ever to advancing the clean energy innovations needed to address climate change. His work in this area will continue, and it's focused on helping drive reliable, affordable, clean energy solutions that will enable people everywhere to thrive, except for maybe Amy.
Yeah, they didn't list off who got chopped.
No. But Gates is pulling back on the old Breakthrough Energy experiment.
I don't. I've had this conversation before on this podcast. We've had it 100 times separately. I don't know how this thing ends, but I'm starting to conclude this is how it ends. This mania. I think it just
whimper.
Right, it fades away. It fades away. There's not an event.
Not a whimper, not a bang.
Everybody just wakes up one morning and says, "You know what? Who cares? Keep moving." And this falls squarely into that category, right? Who cares? Keep moving. And truthfully, so does the solar and storage pitch on data centers and AI, right? It's like, yeah, you know what? We're not going to sell you on climate change anymore because you're not buying. We're going to sell you on something else that you might buy. I know that annoyed you, but I kind of view that as a positive sign.
Yeah, I get it. I like things to end rather abruptly.
I know you want somebody
I'd like everyone to be running around with their heads down, all sad, and
you want somebody to come out and declare us the victors is what you want to have happen. I don't think that's going to happen.
I want my vindication.
You want your Berlin Wall torn down.
All right. Well, I'm pretty much done. You got anything you want to bring up?
I don't think so. I did.
Anything from your monthly note that we didn't cover, or
not really. The only thing I would mention is that the endangerment finding is going to be a serious effort in the administration, and everybody should get right in their own head about what they think about that, and then of course if they can't get themselves right in their own head, they should call me up, and we'll
15 a month, 20. What's your retainer for that?
We'll fix them. We'll fix them up.
Someone's got to make money off this podcast.
I guarantee you, no one's going to make money off the endangerment finding review.
Yeah. Okay. So, do you want to share your St. Patrick's Day?
Oh, yeah. If you want me to, sure.
It leads into the tweet of the week. So
okay, I will be brief. I despise St. Patrick's Day as celebrated in the United States. I always have. It's just an excuse for idiots to get drunk and ruin the streets of America. And it's kind of tragic because, the Irish have suffered for a number of years. That's not what they are, right? They are not oppressed, but they've suffered under the misrule and cruelty of the Anglo-Saxons. And every Irishman who's here in America, and I count myself in that list for sure, right, should be both grateful to be here and proud to be here. But I wrote a little riff on my own family's journey here, right? My great-grandfather came here, and my great-grandmother came here. She was from Tullamore. He was from Meath. And Belfast ultimately, right? And they struggled. They struggled, and their kids struggled a little bit. My grandfather was a janitor, but their kids did better, like you're supposed to, right? They were
Who was janitor?
my grandfather.
Guess what?
So was yours.
Mm-hmm.
It grounds you.
Among other things, he was a bartender as well.
That's okay. It grounds you, right? It grounds you, and it should ground you. They struggled. Their kids did better. Their grandkids did better. And I'm always concerned that on St. Patrick's Day, we don't think enough about the 45, 50 million people in this country whose parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, great-great-grandparents came here, struggled, and we all have a better life because of it. Now, I know every immigrant story is similar, but I just wanted to. I've been meaning to write that for a number of years, and I'm glad I did. And I
Well, with your permission, we'll put that little excerpt in the show notes.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Thank you.
And, us Italians have a remarkably similar story, but our holiday has been somewhat hijacked.
Nobody celebrates the wearing of the brown. It's okay.
Yeah, so that leads us to, thank you for sharing that, by the way, and that leads us to the tweet of the week. Once again, Mike Collins takes the tweet of the week. We might, and by the way, I'm convinced he listens to our show. He has a This Day in History in his Twitter feed as well. So I'd tell you to look for the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow today, but I bet Senator Menendez got there first.
These Irishmen, you can't take them anywhere.
All right, well, that is it. We got to close. I'm going to close with Governor Gavin. A little amnesia on the governor's part.
So let's talk about the word Latinx. Just 2 weeks ago, here's what he said about it.
By the way, not one person ever in my office has ever used the word Latinx.
So can we finally put that to bed?
Yeah,
we agree?
Where did that even
No more Latinx, everybody.
Well, I just didn't even know where it came from. I'm like, what are people talking about?
But there was a person who used Latinx. It was actually a really important person. It was him. Right?
Yeah, that's right. And look, these aren't minor shifts. These are progressive issues that Gavin Newsom used to champion until fairly recently. And now he's not just walking away from them. He's sort of acting like they were never legitimate with that clip talking about Latinx in the first place. But let's take Latinx. We did find somebody who used it repeatedly in his office. Let's take a listen to this.
I hope we can really paint a picture in terms of our consciousness of how impactful this has been on the Latinx community. The Latinx and Black communities. You've got politicians that are banning not assault rifles, but the word Latinx. They're not even serious.
I mean, God bless these Democrats. They know that every single thing they do and say is now recorded, verifiable, searchable, and yet they just move forward as if
he's going to be a tough out in the presidential race. He is. He's going to be a tough out. Yeah.
I don't know. I just think there's
anybody
so much evidence out there that he is one of the slimiest politicians.
Doesn't matter.
Slimier than his pomade or whatever he puts.
Doesn't matter. He looks good, and he looks good, and he says the right thing when he has to, and that's that. He's going to be a tough out.
We shall see. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is it. Thank you for listening, all of you in the Irish community, the Italian community, the Latinx community, and anybody else who cares to
whatever you got
for a week, an hour a week with your co-host of the Unregulated podcast, number 222 in the books.
Namaste.